from Canada, isn't it?
Yes, we're from Ottawa, Canada.
It's unreal, because like, this is actually our first interview with a Canadian artist, so it's great to have you guys. And we're huge fans of the EP I as well. It's just got released recently. But before we get into talking about the EP and the latest single, can you guys just tell us like who you are and like, you know, what you do and like how you actually got into music?
Yeah. No, long story short, because it's at this point about a decade long story.
Yeah.
We grew up surrounded by music and music instruments, and we had the whole family band experience when we were really young, and that was a lot of fun. We spent a bunch of time doing fundraising and charity work, and then eventually it got to the point where we were too old to donate to, because we were no longer a cute family band. So we turned to our more modern influences, and we started kind of just like getting really into recording and songwriting and producing music. And then we just kind of got obsessed with working on what we feel like is like our own new, like updated modern sound. And that's where we are today. Just kind of like spent a bunch of time investing in studio equipment, building up a home. Yo, Liam, you should mute your situation there, Liam.
I think Liam is like a bit having some difficulties there.
Yeah, I think he's at work.
We can hear him though.
My bad, I can't. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, it might just be our playing back into your speaker.
Yeah, it's coming back. Anyways,
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's pretty much how we got here today. Now we're just like kind of like running our studio, and it's like there's no clientele because of COVID, so I guess we can be our own clients. And so now we just have this wicked opportunity where we can just make music, and that's kind of just driven our explorative sense of music more in a direction of like, you know, unique sounds and all sorts of stuff, which is kind of like what I is. It's like our first real step into like, okay, now we can do whatever we want. And so that's what happens when we do whatever we want.
That's awesome.
Tell us a bit more about the EP and what was the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, well,
So,
I mean,
is it even an EP? I think
it's a stack of songs that ended up all together, which I guess looks a lot like an EP, but this like the story behind it in mind is like would be like the story of how like we went from you know, being on a label and making our music that way to getting off a label, and then the pandemic pushing us to make music ourselves more and more. And it's kind of just like the realization that like, wow, like we can, whatever it is that we imagine in our heads as being a good sound, like we can actually make that ourselves. Like we can do that, and it's actually easier to do that than to go in a studio and have a bunch of other people put their hands on your sound, because then you just like have all these expectations that are very difficult to materialize, because you need these people to materialize it for you. And so though all those songs on that album is like that's kind of like the evolution of us taking ourselves seriously as recording artists and producers and so so that's really like it goes from like Best Direction, Triggered Emotion, What Weighs on You, and I. That's the progression. That's what happens when you just let us off the leash and give us a studio to work with, and I guess that would be the story told by just it happening. But there was no real idea as to what the EP was supposed to be, or if it even was supposed to be an EP.
Because like honestly, we've just been releasing these songs as singles, and every time we release one, we just attach the other song to it, and I guess it looks like it looks like an EP, but
I like the idea of calling it. It's like the post-label Zig Mentality EP.
Yeah. But like the I like EP, whatever you want to call it, like it's actually brilliant, and like the title track itself, like I'm a huge fan of it. So it like that's great, lads. Like, you know, what was the reaction like to I like, and what was it like to release like, you know, something like that during a global pandemic where you can't play it live?
Well,
and also, how do you feel that differs to like your previous work, like the Sesh EP?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I think the major thing for I is because it's funny you say like, how do you feel about the fact that you can't play it live?
Yeah.
Because like I think part of the reason why we were able to let ourselves write something like that was because we told ourselves, fuck it, you know, like we don't care about the pandemic and it canceling all of our shows and all that, like, because like, you know, it is what it is, so you're not going to play live to anybody. So then, and we used to write all our music with live in mind, like, oh, how are we going to play this live?
Yeah.
And I was one of the first, like, you know, fuck it, like what happens when you write something not thinking about playing it live?
Yeah.
And that's just what happens, you know, you pick up like an acoustic guitar and that's what fits the vibe, you know, you mess around and you end up on a synth that you would never use live,
Or
and
you end up recording a bow,
yeah,
using a bow to track guitars, and you're like, we're
it's just all-
not doing this live.
That is the result of not thinking about live, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I forget the other half of your question.
I was like, how do you feel that it differs to like your other like releases, such as like the Sesh EP? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the main difference is like, again, it's just like on a label, which was a Sesh EP, and working with producers, working with other mixers and mastering engineers, and then
all about compromise.
Yeah, we found ourselves compromising a ton on that work, and not that it's bad or anything. It's
that's how it goes. You know, you invite a producer on board, and that means that it will sound in between what you think it should sound like and what the producer sounds like. And then you add a mixing engineer into that equation. Now you have a triangle, and your music will end up sounding somewhere in between all of these people. And if that's not like, you know, what you imagine in your head as the one person who imagines the song, then you need to make the compromise so that like you're okay with it. So that's how we would perceive the Sesh EP.
The other thing, another huge difference is the way that we went about releasing these. One of them was like under pressure, which was we need to get this EP wrapped up, we need to get all these songs recorded, and then we need to release them on the label, and we need to make this happen, you know, like, and afterwards with this, all our new singles, and I were, it's more so just like, we'll release it when we want to release it. There's no one telling us that it needs to be released by this date or finished by this date. We're working at our own pace at this point, and I think that's really what's been
that just
so
invites like a much more creative approach to writing and developing your songs. Just like not having to, you're not forcing at any point, like, you know, and this tends to be like what every single artist that's paying for studio time has to do, because you don't want to be paying your studio time and be sitting in the studio like trying to waiting to get inspired, and so you have to make sure that everything is practiced procedurally, you're ready to go, and so when you get in the studio, it's just the act of repeating the thing that you practice so many times. So that's one way of recording, and then when you don't have that need, when you don't have that thing waiting in the back of your head, it's like, we're paying for the studio time, we need to make the best of it. You can actually just afford to sit there and wait until you get inspired, and then it just happens, and then you just let it carry you, and you're not even, it's hard to even take credit for the creation at that point, because you're just letting it happen. And you're just being the being in the physical world. Yeah,
you're like the buffer. You're the buffer between the intangible thought and creation of music and the physical world, where you make the sound come to life for other people and yourself to hear.
That just feels so much more meaningful in terms of making music than making sure that it's all, you know, pre-practice, ready to go. That's like the more live approach, which like, you know, has its pros. It really gives you a vibe, but it's hard to make something unique like that, because you're limited to the things that you can actually do in real time as you're like half inspired or whatever it is. But then you gotta, that's why managers are good, you know, because they're the ones who worry about the fact that the studio time's so expensive, and they shelter the artist from that, which is the best thing that you could do. But once you know the riddle is the illusion is useless. So we're very lucky to have our own space and studio to be able to record and to put all of our time and energy into just letting that creativity flow.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Can you remember the first song you ever wrote as a band?
Oh man, this is like 2000.
Well, the thing is, we've done a bunch of writing with other writers. You know, like, you know, when you start off in music and you want to become a writer, there are many people, like local musicians or even like people like they do these workshops and stuff where it's like, we'll teach you how to songwrite, and you just pretty much go and really it's valuable experience because you sit in a room with somebody and they pretty much do all the songwriting because you're just an entry-level songwriter, but you just watch them do it and you learn.
Yeah.
And then you do that. We did that with a bunch of people, but
and we were like really young when we were doing this kind of stuff. I was around 9 and 10 years old. We were in these songwriting programs, and
it's super strange.
So like our first song that we ever wrote, I think it was called "I Fall Down." Like there's not even a recording of it.
I wouldn't even call that the first song we ever wrote. That was just like the first time we worked with a songwriter.
Yeah.
But there was a transition where we we realized we were working with songwriters, like really good songwriters who had great experience, and they were telling us like, man, like you guys, whatever ideas you guys come up with, I'm sure if you guys just pile them together, like you guys will come up with some good songs. And then there was a moment where like we transitioned into finally writing our own songs fully ourselves, like
which would have been around 2015, 2016. We really started we started like working that songwriting muscle. And and honestly at that time too, we didn't have a defined sound. We were just experimenting still.
I think the first track might have been Sesh On. That happened like that. That was the first time that there was no other songwriter involved whatsoever. Oh my God, and the song saw the light of day. But yeah, no, that was a long road, the songwriting thing, because man, you gotta it's a difficult skill to learn, almost like it's not even a skill. But now we're fine. Now it's no problem.
Yeah. Now we enjoy writing music. It's not it's more so a process of discovering the music rather than sitting down and writing the music.
Which is good. Which is good because it feels less like work and more like exploring.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So like, where did what's the creative process like in the production of your music, and then like where do your ideas mainly stem from for like a track, and who would be your biggest influences?
So the production approach it varies so much. Like, I mean, every time we go to make something in our studio, it's like we try to do it a bit differently than the last project.
We have so many ways of doing things because we have the capabilities all set up. So it's like, sometimes you have an idea and it's like, okay, we require a scratch guitar take. We'll just lay down the rough skeleton and then we build around that until it sounds fantastic. And then we delete the original guitar and we re-record it really nice.
Yeah.
And then that tends to create the thing is it creates a certain type of song, the strategy that you use for the production. But in terms of our recording and actually when we have a song that's ready to go and we just want to track it, we tend to do drums and bass together at the same time so that we can get a nice groovy vibe going and we're not, bleeding because we don't have a lot of room to isolate our guitars from the drum mics and whatnot. So we get a good clean drum sound and then we get our bass performance at the same time.
Yeah.
So that the skeleton, that's the core of the rhythm section, is all nice and natural and human and it happened together, and then we fill in the gaps with whatever we feel the song needs from that point on, right? So a lot of times it'll be like layer the choruses with some guitar, or maybe find, we want like something a little bit that's going to catch the ear a little bit more throughout the verse. Mm-hmm. So we'll explore different possibilities for instruments that we could use to do that. And then once we feel there's enough to record vocals over, and the way you know that is like, you're just like, vocal melodies are creeping into your head while you're working on the song and you're just singing along to it and you're like, okay, well, it's locked in, like it's so natural. That's the melody that was originally supposed to happen. I just need to let it happen and I just need to add whatever words come to mind to that. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be whatever the words that come to mind will illustrate whatever it is your major thoughts are at the time, so you don't need to worry about coming up with something to write or anything. And then the vocals happen last, and then it's just all post-production. We'll just take our signals, we'll run them through our pedals and stuff, make everything, make all of the sounds have their own unique characteristics. And then we move on to mixing, where we make everything fit together nicely and cohesively. We make the dynamic range grow throughout the song so that it's impactful and
it's
it's
a nice
not just
juicy burger, you know.
and then we just master it, make sure it sounds good on all sorts of systems. We have like some speakers lying around the house. We'll just play the song on. Okay, well, you know, it doesn't sound good on a little stereo. It sounds good on big speakers, but it doesn't sound good on the phone. Okay, we got to make some adjustments and make all of the tracks sound.
Packaging the burger, you got to package the
Yeah,
burger.
good presentation.
Make sure it looks good, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's exactly like running a kitchen.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
It's about picking good ingredients.
Yeah,
It's about putting the ingredients together in a cohesive way.
Yeah.
And then it's about serving the ingredients in a presentable fashion so that everybody can appreciate it before they eat it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
yeah.
the same thing.
And I said the other part of that question was, who would be your biggest influences, and do you feel like your hometown impacts you?
Oh, influences those have been changing over time, because like obviously the generic stuff off the Sesh EP would have been more like rock influences, where
Those are our useful, the
Yeah.
stuff our dad would play for us in the truck as we would.
So like,
grow up.
obviously like Nirvana and like the grunge era, and then there was a lot of we started doing a lot of just exploring music on our own, and
yeah, we landed on some really interesting.
like, I think it's more so like we've developed this philosophy that's kind of like our influences are artists who produce their own stuff. They make their own stuff from start to end, and it doesn't matter the genre really. It's as long as it's like that artist that's doing their work and, you know, making their vision come to life.
Yeah. The same way that we don't like compromising with other people, because I sense that like you can tell when the compromise is being made. When I'm listening to music, I can tell when a band has made compromises, because it tends to land somewhere in the middle of something extremely unique, right? And then I'll listen to some other artists and it will sound extremely, extremely unique. And then I'll look into the credits and find out who made the album, and it turns out that it's produced by the band. Oh, and they had like an engineer who was like, you know, the band's good friend or from a long time ago, or like their cousin or something, or someone very close to the band.
And
so
it wasn't like a paid favor.
So there's a tight circle there, you know, like Tame Impala is a great example. He makes his own music all around, and we absolutely love his productions. There's a techno artist from Germany called Stefan Botzen that we also love. He's got a fantastic album called Powers of 10 that he spent 8 years or something automating and mixing and working on, and it's stuff like that really catches my ear, and I just obsess over it. And like if you go back to the 70s, like the Dark Side of the Moon and all these really crazy studio productions, those are like good examples of like when bands had like the unlimited studio time that they needed and literally worked into their contracts so that they could not worry about that spending money on studio time, and they could let the creative energy flow through them. And so that's why I think we got so many great albums back then, like Dark Side of the Moon's another great example. That's a huge influence of ours.
We really like when the artists are, you know, hands-on, and essentially when the artist is able to make their creative vision come to life through their own hands. It's like that's really what inspires us to do what we do.
That's what gives me chills when I listen to music.
So it's not really a genre-based thing at all. Like we don't really, honestly, like to be honest, we don't listen to rock music.
Not a lot. Unless something great comes along, and it does happen. There are artists that come around and it's
Show Me the Body is one of them. There are some good bands out there, good rock bands. They're just to us like they're tough to find.
There's a lot of compromise happening in rock because you know, like there are only there's only a handful of people who are known for making rock, and there's only a handful of sounds, different types of sound that qualify as rock. So it's like there's carving out something unique for yourself in that is very difficult when you're working with people who have established careers in the genre. So
like it was unique at first, you know.
No,
but you know, time goes by, you know, you gotta evolve, you know, you gotta change it. So that's essentially what we're trying to do, is just break those rules that, you know, the rules of rock music, and you know, kind of just push the boundaries in the ways that we think is, well, not even we think, you know, just whatever way it carries us, you know, like
it'll happen.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We still don't have
So what would you say your fondest musical memory is?
I think my best musical moment, I have these great moments where I'm working on our music, and this is like how I know that I'm ready to print our song and have it submitted to Spotify, is I'll listen to it, and I have a moment where I stop actually paying attention to all of the details, because I know every single detail about the mix at that point, and my brain is in such a complicated place that sometimes I experience a moment where I just hear the music and everything feels like a song for the first time, and that just like makes me feel extremely emotional while I'm listening to the speakers, because I get to experience the experience of being a listener for the first time. And you know, when you're working on making music a lot, those become more and more rare, because you're dissecting music, which is not what we should be doing when we listen to music. We should just be listening to it and experiencing it. So I have those moments, and and my favorite one was when I experienced it while I was working on I&I, and I just got washed over with like a bunch of emotion that was just extremely fantastic. Like I've got to feel the physiological effects of that music has on people, and that's when I went, wow, okay, so this song is good, and it's ready to go, and I should stop working on it, and I should print it, and that's what I did. So that was my favorite musical moment, at least lately. There's been a bunch of live moments that have also been
live. It's like it's a completely different vibe, especially when you have like some of my best musical moments are when we have like a top of the line like mix in our in-ears, and it's like it's hard to tell. It's not like you have it so loud cranked in your in-ears that it's hard to tell if you're even playing or if you're playing along to a track that is just in your head right now. And it's happened to me a few times, and especially when I'm just like, you know, just like super session on stage playing, and I'm like totally rocking out, and I get to like this flow state almost where it's like I'm not playing the song anymore.
You tune out. You stop thinking about the next strike or the next chord or the next lyric, and you're just so present in there. And then time stops passing.
Yeah, and then you tune in, and it's so annoying. You tune into that fact.
Yeah.
And then you're like, fuck, I'm out of that state again.
No,
like I'm doing the mechanical. I'm fucking thinking about the next drum roll, and I'm just like, I don't want that.
Yeah, great moments are short, but they're really fantastic in music. They're very beautiful.
Yeah.
So like, who would be your dream artist to collaborate with?
Dream artist to collaborate with? That's a very good question. I it's funny because, like, you know, like how we just explained, like we've been moving away from working with people as much as possible so that we can figure out this sound. So I haven't put like enough thought into that, because to me that would be about like marrying two unique sounds together into one thing. But in order to get involved in that marriage, you would have to know what your sound is, right? You don't want to get somebody involved in a commitment that they don't really understand. But I think once we really get a chance to figure out where it is that are like our creative ideas, like our shifting sound in the direction of I&I and stuff like that, once we get an idea as to like what that all is going to become as a genre for us, then it will make sense to be like, okay, what would pair well with that in terms of how we would feel. But I think that my thing, I would love to hear like a soul driven rapper on one of our projects, like someone of the Anderson .Paak vibe, or something like that.
Or like even it'd be interesting to do like because it'd be insane to do like a production collaboration where you record something with like, let's say, Unknown Mortal Orchestra, and then you do some kind of production collaboration with the guys from that group, or you know, Kevin Parker, obviously he's the producer, you know, like that doesn't get better than that. But Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting that. That it's like it's hard to say.
It's very hard to say
hard
at this
to
point,
say.
but yeah, collaboration is not something we really think about much. But
Yeah.
But we'll have to introduce that.
Yeah, like
right now we can collaborate with each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
We're
What is your dream venue to play, and what was the first venue you ever played as a band?
I think
dream venue.
I think I knew the first venue we ever played was called Raw Sugar Cafe.
Oh my god, yeah,
Is
dude,
it?
that was like that was our first headliner where we sold it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man,
Raw Sugar Cafe has like a small coffee shop in Chinatown in Ottawa here.
Yeah.
And that was like, I think that was our actual first show. I remember.
Yeah,
I remember.
It was a fundraiser. I was like 13, and that was like our first. Yeah, because we've done like where you like show up and play one song at like a fundraiser event for like cancer research or something, and it's like I wouldn't really classify that as a show because it's not our event, know. But yeah, no, it's a Raw Sugar Cafe around 2013 or 14, something like that, and
the dream venue would definitely be the best sounding venue in the world, whatever that is. Like it's an amphitheater that's scientifically designed to be the best sounding amphitheater in the world.
Actually, dude, the dream venue, we've had the dream venue. It's not an existing venue. It's just like you said, it's an auditorium that has this plexiglass on the front of the stage so that the audio of the stage can't get out into the crowd. So you only get the mix. And people can mosh and like people can stage dive. There's still space for stage diving,
but the speaker system is very nice. So it's almost like it's almost like the stage is actually a studio.
Yeah, exactly.
And because it's a studio, you can have really nice mics and really expensive gear to make it sound like a real studio mix. And then you can send that out to the venue, which is a very nice auditorium, so that everyone can have a good listening experience. And on top of that,
it's in your backyard.
You can record. You can record the whole thing, and then you can mix and master the recording because it's all studio quality stuff. And then you can take that and you can send it to the fans who attended the show, and they'll have an actual it'll be the entire album, studio quality album of the show that they were at. That would be the dream venue, but that doesn't exist.
So we might just have to make that one.
Make it.
Yeah.
All of the venues are closing anyways, which is a bummer, but who knows now, like someone might reimagine a new style of venue that might incorporate something like that, because we need them.
I'm so sick, like. Yeah, so this next question, I was actually asked this from one of my friends. He's a guitarist from a band in Northern Ireland, and they're really, really big fans of you guys. So this question comes from Nino. He said, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being DIY, and what are your plans for the expansion of New Rock Mafia?
That's a good
advantages
question.
And
DIY advantages and
there are a lot of cons to being a DIY artist, and one of the biggest cons is you need funds.
Money,
you need funds to because like we obviously wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here if we didn't sign to the label 2 years ago, and
because that's where we made the money to
pay for our studio. We essentially robbed them of their money to go and build our own capabilities so that we wouldn't need to rely on them. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of artists make when they sign a deal, is they take their money and they go and buy a nice car or put a down payment on a house, whatever it is they decide to do with their money.
That's the reason why record deals have such a shady vibe to them, is because like it's like a deal with the devil. But at the same time, the person on the other end of the deal is a very impulsive person who is very likely to be tempted by the devil. What more would you like? So it's a lot about having a lot of confidence in yourself. And it's about being fully committed to that, and just like knowing that whatever it is that you would have asked the label to do, you're going to have to do. We spend so much time even just making our content, it's one thing to sit down, write music and record it and
have the song, but then it's like you got to do all the visuals for it. We're making our own videos, we're making all our own promotion content, theming everything on our own. We have our own photographer that works with us, so it's like I don't know, part of being a DIY artist is having to surround yourself with people that want to help your situation without, any kind of
everything is relationship based rather than transactionally based because otherwise there's no collective motivation and contribution for the growth of the project. So everyone has to love their position. Everyone has to have a position, most importantly, and then everyone needs to feel like they're contributing value. So that just by virtue of that fact, like that means that if you have a band with 3 people and all 3 of those people love producing music, they're all producers, it's going to be difficult to be DIY because you need one guy who's passionate about making videos or collecting content and doing all sorts of like editing and stuff. You need one guy who's passionate about business management, which is a big one. That's Liam for us. Like if we didn't have Liam, we wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. And then you need another person who can take care of the production and all that stuff. So just so that, everyone knows, who is the chef of which kitchen, and then you can have a bunch of kitchens working together really effectively, and that's when the DIY machine starts to work. And there's no shame in outsourcing your work, as long as like you're outsourcing it to somebody who understands your vision and who understands what you're doing, so that they can be part of the relationship rather than just be left in the dark and paid a fee.
And that, I guess, and that's another good point, is that in order to be a successful DIY artist, you have to have the will. You have to have the will to learn, because if you're going to do it on your own and you want to do it properly, you have to spend the hours, learning how to make your snare sound like the best snare possible, and because otherwise you won't be able to compete with the major label artists. You won't be able to compete with you wouldn't be able to compete with your previous release, which was a label product. So that's essentially our goal, is like we wanted to be able to surpass the standard of the label that we were working with, and really just turn on the jets for the production and the mixing. And honestly, that's just hours and hours and hours of practice, watching videos, and something that most artists who see themselves as an artist, who see themselves as a musician, they have a hard time finding that will to put the guitar down and learn the production so that they can make their guitar sound good. So
it's a growth mindset. Really, it's
huge growth mindset.
It's just about understanding that what you currently know will always be limited knowledge, and that it can grow from that point. And as long as you're in love with growing what it is that you're growing, then it will feel natural and it will not feel like work. And so it's like it's almost like people don't need to be encouraged to externally encouraged to become independent in such a way. It's more so like there's a certain type of person that wants to do this so bad that they will just naturally encourage themselves to do it, and that's where it really starts to work. That's where, like, as I look at like every DIY artist that I appreciate kind of has that going on.
Will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Parker didn't get to where he is just by giving someone else the production job and the mixing job. He did, like, you go listen to the catalog, and obviously his earlier records don't sound nearly as good as his later records.
They were mixed by other people.
They were mixed by other people, right? And then you listen to Currents, and it's like, wow, this is his first mixing job on his music, and it's like, that's the one with, the less I know, the better, the big hit. It's like, he didn't get there by outsourcing. He got there by insourcing,
And he figured it out.
What was the first album you ever bought?
The first album I ever bought, that's a good question.
Oh my God, buying records?
I
when was the last time you bought a record?
And they've been more so getting gifted to me lately, but I used to buy records a lot of records, but I couldn't remember the first one.
What's the first vinyl?
I didn't have the experience that was like, this is my first vinyl, because the internet ruins that for everyone.
Yeah.
Usually, like,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We keep getting back a lot of people saying Avril Lavigne.
yeah. It's interesting.
And My Chemical Romance has been one as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Damn. Yeah, no, see, we don't listen to either of those. We, I think first record, I think the first, like, actual...
I remember being, like, a kid, like, very, very young, when I had a radio with a CD player next to my bed that I would listen to, and, like...
Remember that? Like, oh my gosh, radio.
But I remember having Animals by Pink Floyd in there. I had Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh,
that's a good one. I used to fall asleep listening to Thriller. It's so funny. And then there was one harder album that The Wall was another one that I used to listen to. I used to sleep listening to The Wall as well, which is a very strange experience because it gets to the later parts of the album, things get very abrupt and dynamic. Like, so you wake up and, like, in a terrifying experience, like to like a march to Waiting for the Worms or something. And you're like, oh my god, and your headphones are on and you're like half asleep and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I've had enough of that. But yeah, and then lots of Pink Floyd. I think our early albums definitely would have been Pink Floyd.
Floyd are great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was our first introduction to the whole album experience, and I grew up thinking, like, you know, there's no sense in making an album that isn't conceptual, because it just felt natural for albums to be conceptual, because the concept of an album to me came from Floyd, who did, like, you know, Animals, The Wall, you know, even Dark Side is pretty conceptual, and so everything felt so cohesive, and so that kind of feels like something that we naturally kind of try to do in our music as well.
So what has been your go-to song to distract yourself during hard times over the current lockdown pandemic? And then, like, what do you think of Spotify being used as a tool for fans to discover new music? Because I actually discovered you guys through Spotify because I was listening to Cleopatra, who I'm a huge fan of, and Spotify actually recommended me you guys from, like, listening to Cleopatra. So I was like, these guys are brilliant, because, like, I love music that has, like, you know, really, like, good, like, drum fills and, like, you know, like, great guitars, and, like, I was like, I love like Zig Mentality, like, their class, like, you know. So yeah, I know.
Okay, well, we got what do I forget the first question?
What is the question?
The first part of that question was what has been your go-to song to distract yourself during hard times over lockdown?
Yes, probably, like, that would probably be lately it might be time.
Yeah, I was gonna say It Might Be Time by Tame Impala.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Fucking good song. It's like
Tame Impala is just, like, incredible, like, you know.
Yeah, no, we really love that, like the drum sounds.
And it's crazy.
Yeah,
one of the, like, that's probably one of his best productions, like outstanding all the other ones.
And it's just one of those tracks that just makes you go, like,
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of Spotify, like, we've been becoming really big fans of the functionality of the idea of Spotify, because it is definitely something I wish I had when I was much younger discovering music, because I feel like I forget how I used to discover music. Like, maybe it wasn't until Spotify came around that I actually started discovering music. But that is an essential thing for navigating the music world in today, considering how saturated it is. It also enables the saturation, but at the same time, it's like, you know, to hear, like, that you discovered us through Spotify, like, I would have no complaints, zero complaints.
It also
takes one person.
It's also interesting how they're, like, using their algorithmic stuff, because it's like it helps a lot of smaller artists who actually have good product. You know, because you can put it out there and you can get, you know, a few hundred people to listen to it locally, and then next thing you know, Spotify goes, well, a few hundred people listen to this, let's try it out in a playlist, and then that small artist can get in without any managers, without a connection at Spotify. They can actually get in and see whether their product is going to work with the market and all that kind of stuff. So it's good for the smaller artists. But
I just hope, like, they welcome as much constructive competition as possible. And that they don't lose sight of the demand for high quality audio, high quality masters, like the way Tidal has, and whatnot. But yeah, and then whatever. Once the debate about compensation is all ironed out too, then we'll have a better idea as well. Because right now the music streaming world is kind of semi-divided between the people who care a lot about the integrity of the artists and therefore the payment to the artists. You know, they kind of treat it like it's a job, and so like let's make sure that these people who are working for our economy are being properly compensated. So they'll lean more towards streaming services that enable the artists to be directly paid by their fans, or have their music bought like on Bandcamp and whatnot. And then you got the Spotify version, which is a lot more like, you know, about the what the pack thinks, what everyone is into, and so it's the marriage between those two things is, I think, will be a really cool time in music and music discovery, because
I mean, we're getting there. Kanye is pushing for a lot of like like reformation in the music, the way that the music industry is not in favor for the artists. He's trying to make it a little more just for the artists.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. That'll be good for the listeners too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your favorite track that you released, and what message would you like your fans to take away from your music?
I'd say I and I is my favorite song, and that's only because like
makes sense.
That was the first song that I listened back to after writing the lyrics, and it was the first time that our lyrics struck me more than anything. And I was like, wow, that's some fucking that's some good shit right there. And also sonically, in terms of our production, in terms of how we were writing, I think I and I is still it
felt so unique.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite out of everything we've done. And
it was the best experience for me in making music in my life so far. Was making I and I. So
and in terms of the messaging, I think like the Sesh EP and stuff was like very like, it's like fun rock, you know, like
it's a good collection of like like some old songs. Like some of the songs that we recorded in that batch were like 10 years old.
Yeah, and they're of a less serious topic. Like obviously Sesh On is about, you know, just smoking weed with your friends and having a good time.
Pretty Girls and Bikes is a great tune as well, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And those are like, you know, they're not very serious topics, but lately we've been reading a ton of books, and we're just like really expanding on exploring the self and exploring our ideas, and even outside of music, you know, like outside of the context of music, we're just really learning about self-development. And that's essentially what I and I is, that we were kind of, that was the first time we put those kinds of thoughts into our lyrics.
It's pretty it's a song about feeling whole.
Yeah.
And so it's just highlighting the importance of you know, feeling whole and not forcing yourself to feel separate. It's essentially a good part of our message, and that we feel it ties well into like a message that we've been pushing like naturally for a while, which is like, you know, trust yourself, be confident in yourself, and do it yourself, because like there's you'd be surprised what you could accomplish just by trying to accomplish it, because the world is not as resistant to people trying to do things as we tend to think. So, and what's funny is that Nardwar, the famous music interviewer, he has a great TED Talks about this. He talks about his TED Talks is titled "Do It Yourself," and he talks at length about how he would just reach out to, you know, said artist management team, request an interview, and it would just happen. And, you know, it's just some guy in Vancouver with a camera and a microphone, and he just does his work, and then he makes one of the most important journalism channels in music.
Yeah. And a lot of people believe like, oh, I can't do that. I got to go through the interviewing company or the network company to get these kinds of interviews. And it's like, no,
if you're competent, like you will be someone will find a place for you, or you'll find a place for yourself, because like you're just competent, and people love competent people, and people love people who are excited about what they do. And it's like, you know, you just need to be one of those people, and then you will attract to somewhere where you feel like you belong. So just do it.
It's kind of like the message is like, you know, you have an intuition, you know, use it.
Yeah.
Don't let other people tell you that your intuition is not the thing to be listening to.
Don't get caught in the game of evaluating all of the things that you need in order to make decisions. You could do that your whole life. You know, like there's much value in experiencing and just committing to, you know, what it is that your mind is telling you to commit to, that feels right, that is aligned with good, and that is sustainable. Yeah. And obviously, and keeping in mind the idea of responsibility, and like, you know, not to have like a good backup plan. You know, you got to survive in the world. Like that's the idea of like there's two eyes, right? And it's about bringing them into one cohesive whole where you can feel whole and everything. Honestly, I just feel like I think that's what happens when you're on stage and the mix locks in, and you stop experiencing the illusion of time. Yeah. And you stop seeing yourself performing the music, and the music is just performing. That's a moment. That's a cohesive whole moment where you're aligned with everything, the moment, and you're experiencing. And those are the things you remember. Like those are the things you remember throughout your life. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that people think back on before they die, because that's what your life is. It's a series of these moments, and so enjoy them.
Exactly. Yeah. So have you been to any concerts before COVID that have inspired you in any way? And what do you think of the local music scene in your area? And like, do you think that being based in the capital of Canada has benefited your career so far?
That is a very interesting
question. Super interesting question.
The first part of it,
we went to go see Show Me the Body before.
Yeah, we saw.
I think we don't really like. Honestly, Ottawa's music scene is strange because we're in between Montreal and Toronto, which are two major markets. Yeah. All the big bands just skip Ottawa because there's not really a big market here. The only bands that really come here are the big, you know, like Justin Bieber will play at the stadium, the hockey arena, you know, and we don't really have this medium-sized venue where like, you know, we don't really have a venue that does like 3,000-4,000 cap with really nice sound. So it's like you either get the small local bands that play, you know, the 200 cap room, or you get the big band that comes and does the 20,000 cap room, and you're just like, there's no in between. So, and even our local music scene it's not really like bumping, you know, like we don't have big artists coming out of our area.
It's got good pockets.
Yeah. You know, like it's super interesting. We have a really intense and, you know, lively metal hardcore scene here.
Yeah, there's a good one. Yeah. And like some good punk stuff going on too. And you're like, there's a lot of hip hop that happens. A few hip hop artists have come out of Ottawa and have done fairly well. And but the thing is, like, there's like, you know, there's not a lot of studios, obviously, when you compare to Toronto. And I think Ottawa is close enough to Toronto for anyone in Ottawa to just be like, well,
we'll go to Toronto.
If you just drive 6 hours, this whole operation could be legit, you know? Yeah. And so a lot of artists will do that.
A lot of them move away from Ottawa, to the question of like, have you benefited from living in Ottawa? If anything, a lot of artists here that want to take their career seriously, they don't see it as a benefit, so they move to a market like Toronto, or they'll get a green card and move down to New York or LA because that's just where the market is.
There aren't a lot of markets around Ottawa either. Unlike Toronto, which has tons of good markets just around the GTA. It's just a huge concentration.
Yeah, like you could do a Clover tour from Toronto, go hit, you know, Buffalo. You could do shows in like London, Ontario, or you can cross the border super easily, and it's like there's tons of markets there. So it's like
but Ottawa. The other strange thing about Ottawa is it is a political city. So it is like there's not like people aren't really down for noise
Loud
past
noise.
11 kind of stuff, because the entire city is running the country pretty much.
Yeah.
And so like everyone's working for the government in this city, like it's crazy. So their lives are a lot less structured around entertainment and music and music scenes. So that creates a pretty major disadvantage in my opinion for bands who are trying to launch their careers in Ottawa, because it's
tough.
It's very tough. Very, very tough.
Like we did a lot of traveling, and like we do better selling tickets in Toronto than we do in Ottawa, and that's just because the market is there, not in Ottawa.
Yeah. Music fans.
Yeah, music fans, yeah.
There's only so many.
Yeah. It's also a very family oriented city. Like, people who want entertainment, they'll take their family to a hockey game. They're not going to take them to a really loud rock concert, because they're kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any advice or insights you'd like to give to someone who's looking to pursue a career in the music industry?
Yeah. My advice would be, and this might depend on what career, but my advice would be, know what it is that you want before you get involved, because if you don't know what you want before you get involved, what you want will be shaped by
what other people want,
whoever you got involved with. And other than that, I would say just like understand that this business is not what's a good way to say it? This isn't like the business of renewable energy. Like this is not something that you just get in and it's easy to make money. And if it's hard, and if you're gonna be in it to make money, then you better have a passion for it that's just as strong as your need to make money. Otherwise it's just not going to be fun, and you'll spend a lot of time wishing you had done something else. That's pure and simple. But that's mainly for artists, people who are
if you're looking to become a musician, you got to keep in mind that this is not to make money. You're doing it because you're an artist, and artists ultimately make their music because they enjoy doing it. They don't look for the money, and money comes along if you get really good at what you do and you keep doing what you're doing. Money will come along. Someone will notice you. Someone will sign you, and if that's the right thing for you, you'll sign the deal and you'll take the money. Or maybe it won't be the right thing. Maybe you'll do something so well that like Wolfpack, an example of a band that they're funded by their fans. They'll raise $20,000 just through their fans streaming an album of Silence that they told their fans to stream this when they went to sleep, and it was no music, literally just 30 seconds of silence. They made $20,000 in streams, booked a tour, played a show at Madison Square Garden, and sold it out. And that's no label, no real managers. They're their own producers, mixing engineers, all that. Like they're their own circus act, So it's doable. It's doable, and you just got to put your mind to it. And just like anything else, you want to become an MMA fighter, you want to become a champion. You put your head down, and you do the grind.
There's the long road and there's the short road.
So what does the future have in store for Zig Mentality? And are there any specific goals that you'd like to achieve? And maybe, possibly, you can probably come to play a show in Dublin here in Ireland in the future.
Yes.
Well, we got our citizenship, so we can easily come over and do 100%. A tour. No problem.
Awesome.
We've actually played in Ireland.
Yeah, we've done an Ireland tour. Back in 2012. Was it 2012?
When we were a family band, we played in Ireland. We did a mini Irish tour. We played. Where did we stay? We stayed around Inniscrone.
Yeah, we were staying in Mayo. We have a ton of family out in Mayo, and we did we pretty much went to Galway. We were playing a lot in Inniscrone, which is the town that we were staying in.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I forget because I was 12. We were doing all this, but
it's so funny. We toured Ireland.
But Ireland is man, I would love to live in Ireland.
Ireland's awesome.
It's so beautiful. But forgetting all this great stuff about Ireland, the future of Zig Mentality is
build a studio in Ireland.
Build a studio.
The hand over to the studio.
I mean, we're laughing about this, but we were talking about it yesterday. We were talking about getting a place, a beachfront place to build our studio in Ireland. But in terms of releases, right now we're in the middle of tracking a bunch of new music. We always are. We're always writing.
That's the future for us, is just keep pumping out music, like just get more and more used to making music and knowing what our sound is, knowing what we like. Yeah. And keep living, you know, aside from that, not letting that consume our lives, not, you know, making music, and then while you're not making music, you're, you know, managing your social media, and then while you're not doing that, you're doing something else for your music career, because, you know, you need to make music about something, and the thing that you're making music about is experiences
outside of writing music.
So we're gonna spend a bunch of time experiencing things, which is fun. That's the future of Zig Mentality.
Yeah. I mean, we're all doing stuff to earn money outside of music so that we can continue funding our project. And we're really excited. We're going to be doing a bunch of releases throughout the rest of the year, hopefully, you know, like continue doing what we're doing now. And
then we'd love to get back to playing shows. If the world opens up again. Canada's still super.
Hopefully that'll be soon enough. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, America is opening up. They're starting to book. I saw some bands that are starting to book tours and stuff, and Australia is opening up. So
Australia, I'm so jealous of them, and New Zealand as well. So
Tim and Paula just did back-to-back shows, sold out. You know, and there's no social distancing, and it was there were no problems, and
I think we're the opposite end of the scale. We can't move 5 kilometers from our house.
Wow. Oh, you're lucky, because we're not allowed to leave our house after 8 p.m. We have a strict curfew.
Really?
You can't take your dog. Like, people have been getting fined walking their dogs past 8 p.m.
Oh, that's
and
mad.
it's very
strange.
Very strange.
Strange times.
Very strange.
Looking forward to the touring once it's all over.
Oh god, like it's been such a long time since we've been to shows. Like our last show was there last March 2020, before the whole Corona thing. Like, you know, I think our last gig was Halsey, actually. She played in Dublin. And it's been an awful long time since I've been. It's been hard on bands and artists and everyone involved, like, you know.
100%.
It's hard, So what we're gonna say there? I won't cut you off.
I was just about to say, like, the reality is that a live stream concert doesn't replace a real concert.
No.
It's nowhere near the same thing, as much as people like to think that, you know, buying a ticket to the live stream is the same thing as buying a ticket to the show. It's really not.
It's not. You can't beat the atmosphere of a live show, and like the drums as well, like, and all the bass ringing in your ears as well, like, you know. You can't beat the energy, and just being in a crowd and like everyone moshing as well, like, you know, and
it's an experience.
Like, seeing people throwing beers in the air as well, like, you miss all that.
Seeing the band is like 5% of the experience.
Oh,
Being in the presence of other people and the actual physical sound frequencies is 95% of it.
So where can we find Zig Mentality on social media? So like you have Instagram and Twitter, isn't it?
Instagram and Twitter.
That's mostly where we're active. We also have Facebook, which is like who uses Facebook anymore?
Facebook's gonna die out for everyone lately, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but it's there, you know, if you want to go check it out. Zig Mentality on Facebook.
And then at Zig Mentality, isn't it? Like, just your username is at Zig Mentality.
Yeah, on everything.
Yeah, and you can check Jig and Quinn out on Spotify and Apple Music, and their latest single "I and I," like, we really recommend to listen, because they're awesome, and I'm really digging their sound. And then EP, like I said, like it might be an EP, whatever, like people want to perceive as, whatever. And
it's music.
So guys, before you go, we're just gonna take a photo. Oh, that's okay.
Yes.
I need to just get Aoife on this. I don't know how to take photos on Zoom, but there's Aoife there. Perfect. Just gonna get that on my phone, because I don't know how to screenshot on the Mac.
Right on.
There we go.
I've never. It's just not the same. It's just not the same.
But hopefully, at some point in the future, hopefully we can catch that live show. If we ever come back to Ireland, we'll definitely catch us live, you know.
Absolutely.
So it's Jig and Quinn, isn't it? Yeah. Guys, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and like, you're absolutely dead on sound. And thanks so much for all your interesting answers. They were so good.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed this interview. It was so fun, and like you can actually see how passionate you guys are about what you do. And it was actually just a brilliant interview. So thank you so much for giving up your time today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Right?
Yeah, you guys too.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys.
Take care. We'll see you
Right.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm way too